Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Like.Love.Share podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have Cassidy Wagner from Sound Communications on the podcast with us as a guest. Welcome to the show, Cassidy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. So, we've been working together for quite some time now, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about you, how you got to SoundCom, what do you do there, and just give us a little bit of background.
Yes, great. So I am a digital media and content supervisor at Sound Communications. We are a media agency. Yes, we have definitely partnered on a large volume now of campaigns together, so we're very grateful for that partnership. I've worked for Sound for almost 5 years now. And really, what my role entails is identifying new opportunities for clients from a content perspective, creative perspective. So, of course, a very large part of that is UGC and influencer campaigns, and anywhere that we can weave that into our media strategy, we certainly do.
Right. So I think, Cassidy, you are one of the first who 5 years ago started coming to us with these really, wow, like we could do this, and these odd requests that I think we always leaned into at that,
Yes.
but many companies and agencies and government institutions and higher ed don't realize. Could you tell us a little bit more about what we're seeing in government and higher ed from a high level perspective?
Absolutely. So I think certainly what we've seen on our end is it's definitely a big opportunity. We've seen education and government agencies lean into this definitely a little bit more. I think for a long time it was something that there was a little bit of anxiety around, and I understand too. It's a newer avenue. So really how we've worked with these verticals, and at Sound we don't necessarily specialize in a one particular vertical, which again, to your point about requests, it definitely keeps things interesting. Shout out to Kristen. There's a lot of interesting things that happen. We work very closely with New York City and some of their departments, like the Department of Sanitation, the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, and the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. So, what does that mean? They basically have different community-based and initiatives and mandates that they need to communicate to the city. And so I think what we've definitely leaned into more recently is leveraging creators to help bring their messages to life. And yes, sometimes it's a message like composting, and we're like, "Hey, we really need to make this interesting," because sometimes,
It's boring.
sometimes it's boring, and
Right.
sometimes, it's institutional messaging isn't the most approachable. And we know that leaning into creators to help communicate that is so important, because it brings they're telling a story when they're communicating that messaging, and it builds frequency as well on the overall messaging. They'll see a brand ad that obviously has the facts, but then they get to also see a creator ad who's relaying those facts, but in their own way.
So let me ask you, because there's a lot of agency listeners, and I
Hmm.
guess I'm going to ask you, how do you get to that point? Because there is pushback, or,
Hmm.
how do you get, if you're working in some of these more higher regulated or slower to the creator movement organizations, how do you convince them? It's obviously baby steps. Any tips on how you could do that?
That's a great question. I think how we've done it is it really is a sell, but I think what it is now is a crucial component of a media strategy. So, as a media agency, obviously, we'll run campaigns with the creative that, a particular client is providing. But how we sell this other piece, because it's a harder sell, it's newer, it's a newer capability. Even this year, it was brand new to some of our clients. First of all, I think what's really important, because I think it's hard to conceptualize for a brand or a government agency, without seeing a piece, an example. So what we've really done on our end is we've built up a library of content examples in different verticals to really show how a message, whether it's composting, whether it's a free tax program for New Yorkers, or an initiative like June Music Month, which we just recently did, showing previous examples of content and how it performed from both a paid perspective and an organic perspective, because we certainly do both. But
Mhm.
also, even without the exact examples themselves, I think another piece here is the point around telling the story. So, and how we position it to clients is your creative is perfect. It is, in terms of the messaging. It's
Right.
relaying the message. But what if we took this display ad and the components that you're including, and we'll use composting as an example, as that was a mandate that we recently worked on with Babbel. What if we took that And what if we had people tell the story of how they're weaving it into their own lives? And obviously there's pushback because, well, how do we, make sure that they're the right fit? And how do we know the
Safety.
influencer, what they're going to say? And you need to have safeguards in place. And this is where I think for, those interested and who haven't tapped into this yet, I think it's really important to have the right partner who already have safeguards and vetting in place on their end and have a roster of people that they essentially are recommending, right? For to us, and that's exactly what your team is doing for our campaigns. I think knowing that there's those safeguards in place makes it a little bit of an easier sell. And I think what we really try to do any single time that we have recommended this as an avenue to explore for our clients, it's really around ensuring them that there's an approval process. There's an approval
Oh my
process
God.
from
Every
every step of the way. This is not a situation where we say, we'll see what we get and then they're going to post it and we don't necessarily know who's posting and when and how and the whole thing. I think what we really try to do is break down the process. And I think that helps paint the picture. So when you pair content examples with timelines and process and something that is the holy grail of these campaigns, and I think Kristen would be very happy that I talk about this, is the campaign brief, obviously. There's documentation that's shared with these creators, which provides context, campaign objectives, messaging, and key points. And I think that's also a really big piece of this process. Like we are making sure that they have everything that they need to know so that we can get the creators excited about it too. But I think to answer your question, that's a long-winded answer, but I think overall it's about having the right process in place to therefore find the right fit. But the sell is really around those safeguards, the process, and getting them excited about, previous content examples. We really leverage that on our end and showing some of these examples of how we work with these creators in the past.
And it's kind of crazy. That was a great answer. It's kind of crazy. Like I look at the New York compost examples and each one is different and they're fun and
Yes.
there's a kid in it or, they were great. But I also think of the one that you would never think of as like the career expo that we did
Yep.
last year, I think. And there was
Yep.
one woman who went viral and the career expo was like sold out, right?
Loved that campaign. I loved that campaign. And that's another one where, you're it's certainly relevant from an overall, goal perspective of these job fairs throughout New York City, but it's like, how do we explain the story around that? And how do we show when you actually go to one of these events, what can you expect? And the creators did such a perfect job at using the information that we gave and creating a story around it and actually visualizing it. There was no question. So if somebody was unsure about what to expect, it's in a video and they're breaking it down for you step by step. I absolutely loved that campaign.
And yeah, thanks. And me too, but it gets rid of the anxiety. Like, oh, I'm scared to go to, but now you see where you're going and you see the room
Yeah.
and like, oh, it's okay. So
And
I
our
think,
ads can't do that, right? And the
oh,
ads that are
yeah,
provided by the actual brand, I mean, they're informative and they are explaining what they need to explain. And it's there, but it's not the story around the actual
it's not human.
experience. It's not human. And that is what we love about these campaigns is it makes them human and it's an extension of their branding. It's an extension of their messaging.
Yeah, I think selecting a partner, whoever your partner is like understanding because I do think that some of these government programs require regulations that maybe not everyone knows about. So it's not just like,
Mhm.
oh, making sure their brand's safe. It's like they need to live in the city or the state where, so
Yes.
how do you think finding influencers or creators for a government program is different than a regular campaign, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's definitely different. And I know typically too, when people think of influencer campaigns, it's a lot of e-commerce, it's a lot of product specific, and really it's a harder sell coming from, a government agency already, but then it's also not something tangible. It's a service. And I think for us, what we've learned over the years as well, obviously through our partnership, is what we try to focus on is less about some of these key metrics that typically people would maybe focus. I know this is a hot topic, but we care less truly about follower counts and we care less truly about, video views and how big or small the influencer is. I think for government agencies, it's really about finding the right fit. And that is, what does that mean? It's some deep dives into their feed to really understand how they've positioned messaging with other partnerships. What does their day-to-day look like that they're posting about? What are they passionate about? When we partner with them, it gives it like how would they position our messaging compared to some of the ways that they've positioned it previously? So I think really the answer there is it's really about the relevance, and it's really about that fit versus did they go viral, or do they have this huge follower count? That matters a lot less. I think it can matter a lot less in these scenarios. Of course, there's a use case for that, but I think for government agencies, it's really around, are they geographically relevant? That's obviously a huge one for even just thinking of the campaigns that we partnered with you for this summer. They need to be geographically relevant, and we really care about their brand. Are they seen as a trusted resource? Are they seen, how does their community react to them? And we're
Yeah, the
looking through
community.
comments. There's nothing more rewarding than seeing that comment section. People's sentiment echoing exactly what we wanted them to say. There is nothing more rewarding than that. So it makes putting in that extra bit of work to really understand their brand and ensuring the relevancy, that's what makes that worth it. So I really think it's about, the vetting here. It becomes just really important.
And I do want to shout out to you because people see the final product, but government programs take a lot longer. So shout out to you
Yeah.
because you are very thorough and diligent and just
Yeah.
excellent at making sure it's the right creator and the right piece of content. A lot of times you got to go back and say, oh, could you rework that? And can you redo it? And yeah, so there's a lot.
Totally.
And so, let me just ask you a question in terms of like when you look at creators in, New York City, like what do you think is going to be next for these types of programs? Is there anything that you think is,
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think more agencies will lean into them. I think it's definitely baby steps with even some of the agencies that we've worked with.
Mhm.
Even most recently, learning some feedback from them in some of the campaigns that just happened. Even, some of the feedback that we've received is just so positive, and I think that they're a little surprised and
Yeah, yeah.
also at what they received. I think we're going to see more agencies leaning in, and I think it's simply because it gives agencies an opportunity to build frequency on their messaging as well. It doesn't necessarily halt their other efforts, it just adds to it. And I think anytime you can build frequency on a message in a city like New York, which is obviously, population wise, is it's difficult to build frequency on those geographic areas. I think we're going to see a lot more service and government agencies lean into this
I
for
mean, we
sure.
see it. Like when I talk about the trends of the past 18 months or 12 months, all of a sudden there's tons in government. And now it's going to move me to my next topic, higher education,
Yes.
which I love. And we've seen an uptick. And I know, again, you were one of the first to come to us and say, could we do a program for higher ed?
Mhm.
Could you talk about that a little? Like, what are you seeing there?
Absolutely. And this is another one of my favorite campaigns because we came to you with a very, very specific ask. It was not something as simple either as, we work with Fordham University, and it's not, hey, we need general admission, content. That's what we're looking for. No, we came to you with a very specific ask around very specific programs. And I think again, not to jump ahead, but when you see this come together, it's so beautiful because of these reasons. It's very, very niche. It's very specific. And how we partner with Fordham in particular is through their postgraduate degrees. So again, now we're shrinking that pool even more. And the postgraduate degrees are in fields like hospitality, real estate investment, and you're like, oh
And there
yes.
was a,
The third one is applied health informatics, which
yeah,
again, that's a really difficult person to find, but a
but they're out
non-negotiable.
there.
But they're out there, and we can't. What we're looking for here is not a paid actor, right? If that's what we were looking for, any one of us just could have read a script and been in the video. I think why we were so passionate about finding the right fit for this campaign is because for higher education and especially for Fordham, they have a lot of recognition, of course, but these
Mhm.
programs themselves are just so specific. And what's so beautiful about that is we were able to find people in the field.
Yes.
Maybe they didn't go to Fordham, and that's okay, but they're in the field. Just thinking of our hospitality example. And you have people in the hospitality example, we had our creator, he's a restaurant owner in New York City. As a team, we actually visited his restaurant a few months
Oh,
ago
that's awesome.
in Bryant Park. Yep. And his video is him filming outside of his restaurant or in the kitchen in the restaurant. And it does not get more relevant than that. But I think that's a great example of those people are out there. We have to be patient when we're trying to find them. It
Gonna
definitely takes
say,
time.
it took time, and
Took time.
you were patient, and the partner was patient too. Like,
Absolutely. They know this is not an
yeah,
easy,
yeah.
group of people to find, but where we cannot, have any we can't necessarily be loose on the fact that they need to have the experience because that's what makes that content so valuable and it's become a staple in our media strategy. We have these pieces of content. They performed so well in our paid social campaigns and so rewarding to have people in the hospitality industry have people, in the real estate investment field walking through buildings explaining and walking through the streets of New York City actually speaking to a topic because they've lived it and explaining how these post grad degrees and certificates can augment your current degree. And again, this is not a we didn't want a paid actor. We wanted someone who was,
And the
had
people
that
didn't,
career.
right, they had the career, and maybe they didn't have that degree, and they're like, this would have been great had I had it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that was so valuable to, I mean, overall, just such a success. The fact that we found those people too, I mean, like you said, they're out there.
There's always someone out there. And I guess my question to you is, you've done a great job too with not just, it's not just about the creator's audience. You managed to get the UGC, sometimes both, but
Hmm.
sometimes just UGC. Talk about that a little bit, like the UGC and then turning it into paid ads. And I know many people know about that strategy, but I wonder if in some of these later to the game organizations, they don't realize that that's something that, you could do.
Absolutely. And I love this question because that's really also how we frame it to clients when we're talking about the partnership, because it's not a situation where, listen, they're going to post and then, you won't see the video. Like it's going to live in their feed, but that's it. That's the partnership. What I love about, taking that approach. So obviously, the UGC, so then the client owns and we leverage that throughout their paid social campaigns. It pairs so well with the organic posting. And I think then what happens is you're like I said earlier about building frequency. It's that post lives on. That post lives on, or the content rather, lives on in our campaigns, and the client is really sees it, the investment in a different way. And it's something that we continue to use. It's something that becomes a staple in our strategy. It's something that, was given a different life in an influencer's organic feed, and how we position it to clients too is that lives on there and it fits so well with their brand. Again, this is where we emphasize finding the right fit because we want our clients to feel fortunate that their post is present on so and so's feed. I think that is how, that's the holy grail of these campaigns, but really how we typically work with influencers and obviously with Babbel is really both having both components. I think is just really has worked out really well.
Yeah, especially when it's so niche and
Yes,
so niche, location wise and topic wise, that you
exactly.
need to amplify that message, and now you have that perfect piece of content.
Yes, and you know what else I love about it too is you're partnering with these, especially when we're thinking of some of these local campaigns, you're partnering with these local creators because they know their communities, they know their audience. And then we
Mhm.
take that piece of content in our media campaigns and we're geo-targeting those same areas. So they give us the leg up in understanding, their audience. We're sort of using that since we're targeting those same areas, it really gives us that advantage of accessing that audience and speaking to them in the right way.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is that you don't need to invest in all of them to do it. You can,
Yep,
but you could also see with the algorithms whose content's performing the best, whose is performing where in which audiences, and you could, kind of build your strategy around that once the posts are live.
absolutely.
Where do you see education, government going? What do you think is going to happen? You just think it's going to keep growing?
I think it is, and I think we're going to see, that the services angle, I think, again, it's at first it's difficult to picture. It's difficult to picture how you would portray some of these initiatives. And I think even this summer has taught us that. How do we have a creator speak to this? How do we have a creator experience this? I think there is so much opportunity in communicating the messaging that goes beyond the brands, agencies, whoever's creative. I think agencies are gonna, and government agencies and education, they're gonna continue to realize that they're tapping into a different audience and extending their reach to a different audience when leveraging these types of campaigns. And consumers are getting smarter. I mean, we're hearing this all the time. And I think being strategic with how you're approaching the campaigns is becoming more and more important. I mean, people know when they're being lied to, people know when they're being when something is being so scripted, and you lose the personality and you lose the flair. So I think expectations are going to rise for sure, but I think we're going to see more of these more unexpected players, if we can call them that, really lean into it for those reasons.
Thank you. So I just want to say that Cassidy is the best person to work with. So if
Oh, sure.
anyone
Thank
wants to find you,
you.
how can they find you? Yeah.
They can find us through soundcomagency.com. They can reach out to us, obviously through LinkedIn or elsewhere. But yeah, we've really enjoyed partnering with Babbel on these campaigns. It has been so rewarding to see some of these messages come to life. It's definitely work, it's definitely back and forth, it's definitely planning and a lot of collaboration and a lot of communication, but seeing the end result in these videos from these creators is so rewarding. And our clients have just been so thrilled by what we received at the end, and seeing that come together is amazing.
Well, we're so happy and we hope we can continue supporting you in your efforts. And thank you so much. I know it was hard to get us on a call together, but I really appreciate the time. So thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.